They say some bridges are meant to connect two points. But what if one connects two realities? Hidden deep within the blackened woods of Eastern Europe, shrouded by fog that never lifts and whispered about only in terrified murmurs, lies an ancient stone bridge. Locals call it Teufelsbrücke, the Devil's Bridge. No one builds a structure that perfect in the 11th century without help. Legend has it, a soul was bargained for each stone laid, and each step taken across it brings you closer to something unholy. But that's just folklore, right? Wrong. When six strangers receive an anonymous invitation promising fortune beyond belief, they travel from different corners of the world to find the truth. But the truth wants to be hidden, and it's not just the bridge that waits for them, it's what lies beneath it. What if crossing the bridge doesn't just take you to the other side, but into the other side? A gateway to hell, a portal to another dimension, or something worse? You're about to find out. But beware, once you step onto the Devil's Bridge, there's no turning back. What do you think hides at the other end of the Devil's Bridge? A forgotten world? A cursed realm? Maybe. Your deepest fear? Comment your wildest theory, like if the intro gave you chills, share to creep out a friend, and subscribe so you don't miss the full horror story unravel. Rain battered the windshield like a swarm of angry insects. The wipers of the black SUV fought an uphill battle, slashing through the downpour as the vehicle tore down the winding Romanian mountain road. In the passenger seat, Lena Morano stared at a folded piece of parchment in her hands. The ink looked like it had been scrawled in blood, thick, dark, and permanent. Cross and see. That was all the invitation said. No signature, no sender. Just coordinates and a date, tonight. She wasn't alone. Six strangers had received the same message, each one drawn by something different. For Lena, it was curiosity and grief. Her brother had vanished 3 years ago on these very mountains. He left behind nothing but a cryptic journal and the word Teufelsbrücke underlined over and over again. The driver, a quiet man named Jarek, kept his eyes locked on the misty road. He didn't speak unless spoken to, and even then his replies came in cautious, gravelly whispers. Lena had hired him online, a local with a four-wheel drive and an iron stomach. A sharp curve almost sent them into a ditch. Jarek muttered something in Romanian, then turned to her. "This place, it doesn't want to be found." "Then why do you keep driving?" she asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he tapped the crucifix hanging from the rearview mirror and pressed harder on the gas. Meanwhile, a second vehicle crawled through the forest trail several miles south. Inside, Dex Harrington adjusted the satellite GPS on his wrist, then checked the time. He was a documentary filmmaker with a taste for the bizarre. Urban legends, haunted places, missing persons cases. He chased stories most journalists avoided like the plague. But this felt different. It wasn't the eerie silence of the woods or the pale-faced villagers who refused to speak once he mentioned the bridge. It wasn't even the screaming he thought he'd heard echoing from the trees the night before. It was the dream. Every night since receiving the letter, Dex had seen it, a long, ancient bridge stretching into an endless fog. He stood at one end, unable to move. On the other end, someone was watching him. No matter how hard he tried, he could never see their face. Just eyes, black and wide, like empty sockets. Dex shuddered and turned up the heat. The forest seemed to breathe around him, each tree branch curling like fingers reaching for his car. Elsewhere, in the decaying remains of an old guest house, Dr. Elisa Nkosi examined her surroundings with a surgeon's precision. She was a forensic anthropologist from South Africa, brought here by something she couldn't explain: compulsion. Her dreams had been filled with symbols, cryptic voices, and the same Latin phrase burned into her mind: Transiti pont m revelabitur. Cross the bridge. It will be revealed. She didn't believe in demons, but something in her bones said this was no myth. There were patterns and disappearances near this area going back centuries, each spaced exactly 66 years apart. The next was due this week. "Elisa," a voice called from outside. It was Rahul Patel, a British hacker and codebreaker who claimed to have decrypted part of the dark web invitation linked to the bridge. He was young, cocky, and oddly jittery, constantly looking over his shoulder like something unseen stalked him. "I just picked up a weird signal," Rahul said, glancing nervously at the towering trees. "It's like static, but under it there's whispering. Real time. Like it's talking to us." Elisa stepped closer. "What's it saying?" Rahul paused. "I think it said your name." By midnight, all six had gathered. Near the ruins of a 12th century chapel, mist blanketed the clearing, hiding the bridge just ahead. The group included Lena Morano, haunted seeker of a missing sibling; Dex Harrington, thrill-hungry documentarian; Dr. Elisa Nkosi, scientist obsessed with patterns; Rahul Patel, paranoid hacker with strange tech; Sister Mary Eileen, a nun sent by the Vatican with no stated reason; Dmitry Volkov, a silent man with military posture and unknown intentions. They stood in silence, the bridge slowly materializing from the fog like a stone serpent. "No lights, no safety rails," Dex muttered, filming it with a shaking hand. "Jesus, this thing looks like it wants to collapse." Sister Mary made the sign of the cross, whispering in Latin under her breath. Rahul was the first to step closer, his laptop still running the strange frequency from earlier. As he moved, the whispers intensified, hissing through his earbuds. "I'm getting audio spikes. It's reacting to movement." Lena's eyes locked on the bridge's entrance. Two statues stood like silent guardians on either side. They were cracked, eyeless, and smiling. She blinked, and for a split second their mouths moved. "Come home." She jumped back, heart racing. "Did you hear that?" she shouted. "Hear what?" Elisa asked, alarmed. "The statues. They spoke." "No, Lena," Dex said slowly, lowering his camera. "They didn't." Just then Dmitri let out a low grunt. He'd wandered off the path, crouching by something half buried in mud. He yanked it free and held it up. A backpack, torn and crusted in dried blood. Inside he found a tattered journal. Lena snatched it from his hands, flipping through with trembling fingers. Her brother's name was scribbled on every page. This belonged to Marco. The last entry was dated exactly 1 year ago. It read, "I crossed," but it followed me back. Suddenly an unearthly howl tore through the woods. The air grew thick, cold, electric. Something stirred in the fog, something massive. They all turned to the bridge. The fog parted. A figure stood halfway across the span, draped in black, motionless, unblinking. Its head tilted slowly. Then it pointed, straight at them. Nobody spoke. Not a breath. Not a twitch. The figure on the bridge held them in a vice of fear, its raised hand still pointing, rigid and skeletal. Fog slithered across the stones like sentient smoke, coiling around the statue bases and licking at the travelers' feet. Even the forest behind them fell utterly silent. No birds, no insects, no wind. It was as if nature itself was holding its breath. Then without a sound, the figure turned and walked back into the mist. Lena's voice cracked. "Did anyone else see that?" They all nodded slowly. Everyone except Dmitri, who had already drawn a pistol from under his coat. "Human or not," he said in his thick Russian accent, "we don't go unarmed." Sister Mary clutched her rosary tighter, whispering something that sounded more like pleading than prayer. Her eyes remained fixed on the bridge, as if trying to determine whether what they'd seen was flesh or phantom. Dex checked his camera. "Still recording," he murmured, but when he reviewed the footage, the figure wasn't there. Only empty bridge. "Impossible," he muttered, fingers trembling as he scrubbed the video timeline again and again. "It's not there. It was right there." "Hallucination?" Elisa offered, but she didn't sound convinced. Her rational mind fought what her instincts screamed. This was real. Rahul backed away slowly. "Guys, my equipment's freaking out. EMF spikes, thermal overlays. It's like the tech is seeing things we're not." His laptop crackled, showing static-laced visuals of the bridge warping slightly on screen. For a second there was a flash, a horned silhouette in the center of the span. He slammed the lid shut. "Nope, nope, nope." Lena stepped forward. "We came here to find out the truth. Marco crossed that bridge. If we're going to learn anything, we have to go too. Sister Mary snapped her head toward Lena. Number crossing that bridge may be an invitation to damnation. And yet you're here, Lena snapped. You got the same letter we did, so don't pretend you're here to say a few prayers and leave. Mary's jaw clenched. She didn't respond. Dmitri took point, motioning with his weapon. We go together. No one splits. If we see something, we report it. If we hear something, ignore it. Keep your eyes forward. The group hesitated. Then one by one, they followed him. The bridge. As their boots touched the ancient stone, a subtle vibration pulsed through the structure, like the heartbeat of some slumbering giant. Each step echoed louder than the last, amplified not by the stone, but by something below. The air thickened. The fog closed around them again, swallowing the world. Within moments, the forest in ruins vanished from view. There was only bridge and mist. Rahul's breathing quickened. Are we moving, or is the bridge? Lena glanced back. The path behind them was gone. Not just fog-covered, gone. The bridge extended infinitely behind and ahead, floating in a white abyss. Dex spun in a slow circle, his flashlight beam cutting through the mist but revealing only more stone. This is wrong. This bridge was only 30 meters long. We've walked at least 100, Elisa whispered, her voice shaky. Then they heard it. Whispers. Dozens. Hundreds. All around them. Elisa clutched at her ears. They're saying names. Our names. Dex pointed his camera into the fog. This is it. This is real. We're not hallucinating. We're somewhere else. Then, without warning, Dmitri vanished. One moment he was leading them. Then the next, the bridge in front of them was empty. Dmitri! Lena screamed, running forward. Dex lunged to grab her, but missed. She bolted ahead into the mist. Lena, stop! He shouted. Sister Mary began to sob. We're being separated. It's isolating us. Rahul was already pulling up a heat sensor app on his phone. Come on, give me something. His screen glitched violently before the phone shut off entirely. Dead, he muttered. All my backups just crashed. Lena. She ran blind through the fog. The stone beneath her seemed to stretch and shift with each footfall. She could hear her name being whispered now, not just around her, inside her head. Lena! Come home. She stopped, heart hammering. Her flashlight flickered, dimmed, then died. But she could still see. A dim orange glow formed up ahead. She crept toward it. There, in the center of the bridge, sat a dining table. Ornate, elegant, absurd. Candles floated above it like will-o'-the-wisps, and at the head of the table sat Marco, her brother, pale, gaunt, eyes sunk into dark hollows. Marco? Her voice cracked. He looked up slowly, smiled. You made it, Lena. She rushed forward, tears already forming. How? How are you here? But the moment she touched him, his face contorted into something else. His mouth widened, too wide. His eyes rolled upward, and black ichor poured from his sockets. He screamed, but it wasn't a voice. It was a choir of agony erupting from his throat. Lena stumbled back, falling onto the stones. The table and candles exploded into ash. Marco's form convulsed and burst into smoke, vanishing. Then silence, until she heard footsteps, slow, measured, heavy. From the fog emerged a shape cloaked in shadows. Not quite human, not quite beast. It stopped just outside her vision. She felt its presence in her chest, vibrating her ribs. And then it spoke. Your fear is the key. Bring it, and the door will open. Back with the group, Dex, Elisa, Rahul, and Sister Mary struggled forward, shouting for Lena and Dmitri. I don't understand how this is happening, Elisa hissed. We're trapped in a spatial anomaly. This isn't physics. This is something else. Then they heard a growl. Low, guttural, animalistic. They turned as a dark mass emerged from the fog behind them, crawling on all fours. Spindly limbs, eyeless face, mouth full of jagged teeth. It moved like a spider, but it laughed like a child. Run! Dex screamed. They scattered, the creature shrieking after them. Mary tripped, falling hard. As the creature lunged, she raised her rosary and screamed a prayer, and the creature stopped. It shrieked, recoiled, and vanished in a blink of shadow. Panting, Dex pulled her up. "What the hell was that?" Sister Mary wiped blood from her lip and whispered, "One of the watchers." Suddenly, a loud bang echoed across the bridge. It sounded like a gunshot. Then came Dimitri's voice, distant but clear. "Help, please." It took my eyes. Dimitri's voice hung in the mist like an echo from the grave. "Help, please." It took my eyes. The group froze, the words ringing with a strange distortion, as if spoken from underwater or through a dying radio. Dex's flashlight quivered in his hand. He pointed it into the endless white, trying to find a silhouette, a shadow, anything. "Dimitri!" Elisa shouted. "Where are you?" "Close! So close!" came the reply. But it didn't sound right anymore. There was something off in his tone, like multiple versions of his voice, some deeper, some higher, were speaking in unison. The sound made Rahul gag as if his brain couldn't process the frequency. "We need to go back," Sister Mary said. "This place is eating us alive." But Dex stood his ground. "We can't. The bridge behind us is gone. Lena's still out there." Before they could argue, a wet dragging sound scraped across the stone path ahead. Something heavy, something pulling itself forward. Then it spoke again, just ahead in the fog. "It wears me now." A shape appeared, crawling, drenched in blood. It had Dimitri's body, but its face was a ruin of shredded flesh. Eye sockets dark and hollow, lips peeled back in a constant grin, and its fingers, too long, too many. The creature stopped a few feet from them. Its mouth didn't move when it spoke. "I saw the door. It sees you, too. It knows your names." Without hesitation, Dex raised a flare gun from his bag and fired. Boom! The burst of red light slammed into the creature's chest. It shrieked, an unnatural, warbling scream that tore through their ears. The body collapsed, writhing, smoke pouring from its wounds. But instead of dying, it split apart. Like burning paper, Dimitri's form peeled open, and from within emerged a black, spindly creature with antlers made of bone and dozens of blinking red eyes scattered across its torso. It screamed again and dove into the fog. They ran, elsewhere on the bridge. Lena stumbled through a corridor of fog now twisted into a new shape. She wasn't on a bridge anymore. She was inside something. The walls were wet, pulsing, like flesh, and there were whispers, constant and maddening. She turned a corner and found a series of mirrors, all cracked and freestanding, arranged in a circle. Each one reflected a different version of herself. One, Lena, was bleeding from the eyes. Another had black veins crawling across her skin. One was screaming silently, but one mirror showed Marco, standing behind her, reaching for her shoulder. She spun around. Nothing. When she looked back, her reflection was gone. "Not real," she whispered, backing away. "This isn't real." Then she heard her brother's voice again. "Sis, don't look away." From the corner of her eye, the mirror shimmered. She turned to face it, and suddenly a hand burst from the glass, grabbing her by the throat and pulling her forward. Back with the group. The fog opened slightly, revealing an ancient archway up ahead. Moss-covered stone formed a crumbling gate carved with symbols that twisted when you stared too long. In the center was a circular hole filled with darkness so thick it seemed to suck in light. "This isn't just a bridge," Elisa whispered. "It's a veil." Rahul scanned the structure. "My EMF's off the charts. There's energy here I've never seen before, like quantum fluctuations in space." Dex crouched near the edge of the bridge. "There's something under us," he said, shining his light down into the mist beneath the stones. The beam struck something reflective, a surface far below. Water? A mirror. Then something looked back. Two glowing red orbs blinked from beneath the surface. The mist below hissed, and the bridge trembled. "Move!" Sister Mary yelled. "Now!" The group sprinted through the archway just as a bone-rattling roar erupted from below. Something massive stirred under the bridge. Something alive. They emerged on the other side of the gate, breathing hard. The space had changed again. No more fog, no more bridge. They were in a black forest, under a sky that churned with crimson clouds. Trees twisted like gnarled fingers. The air smelled of ash and copper. They stood on a narrow path carved between obsidian stones, all of them pulsing with faint red light. A distant bell rang, echoing from somewhere deep within the trees. "Where the hell are we?" Rahul asked, voice barely above a whisper. Sister Mary crossed herself. "This is beyond." Elisa knelt, touching the soil. "It's warm." From behind them, the archway closed. Stone twisted, sealing the way shut. "We're trapped," Dex muttered. And then Lena screamed. Her voice came from somewhere ahead, sharp and full of terror. Dex bolted toward the sound. "Lena!" Lena! The creature had pulled her through the mirror into a chamber of smoke and bone. Black vines grew from the walls, pulsing with red veins. She kicked and struggled as she was dragged across the floor toward a pit that pulsed like a heartbeat. And from that pit rose a figure cloaked in shadows, wearing a crown of rusted thorns. Its eyes were empty, but its mouth split into a smile that stretched far too wide. "Child of grief," it hissed. "You bring your sorrow like a gift. May it feed the door." The pit flared with orange light. Screams echoed from within, voices of children, men, women, all overlapping in eternal torment. "Let me go!" Lena screamed, fighting the grasp of spectral hands. The crowned figure leaned close. "You cannot unsee the gate once it knows your name." Suddenly, a crash of light and flame exploded behind her. Dex burst in with the flare gun, firing again. The creatures around her shrieked and scattered like cockroaches. "Lena, get up!" She staggered to her feet, bloodied but alive. "Dex, how did you—" "I don't know. This place keeps changing." He grabbed her hand and together they fled into the shadows, pursued by whispers and laughter. Back in the forest, the others heard them approaching. Rahul aimed his flashlight and caught sight of the pair, running at full speed. Behind them, the trees moved. Something with too many arms crawled between the trunks, giggling like a child. Its body was wrapped in the remnants of robes, its head a mass of twisting black worms. It didn't walk. It floated. "Go!" Dex screamed as they reached the group. The creature howled and the forest shook. Then came the laughter again. Dozens of voices all saying the same thing. "You've crossed the devil's bridge. Now pay the toll." They ran without direction, driven only by instinct and the primal need to survive. Behind them, the forest pulsed with shifting shadows. Trees groaned like ancient beasts. The laughter followed, mocking, inescapable. 1,000 voices speaking from nowhere and everywhere at once. The path beneath their feet was unstable, the obsidian stones rearranging like living flesh with each step. Every time they looked back, the forest changed. "Keep moving!" Dex shouted. His lungs burned, sweat drenched his face, but he didn't stop. Couldn't. Lena tripped over a root that hadn't been there a second ago. Dex caught her, nearly falling with her. They crashed into each other and tumbled to the ground. Rahul turned to help, only for the soil to split open beneath his feet. He screamed as his legs dropped into the void. Sister Mary and Elisa lunged, each grabbing an arm and pulling with everything they had. Something in the hole grabbed him, cold, slimy, smiling. "It's grinning at me," Rahul shouted, kicking wildly. With one final heave, they yanked him free. A severed finger came up with him, human, pale, still twitching. Rahul threw it away, gasping and weeping. "Why is this happening?" he sobbed. "What is this place?" Sister Mary's voice was quiet, resolute. "It's judgment. This is where the devil weighs your soul." A shrill scream pierced the forest. A woman's, high and broken. Then silence. The trees parted unnaturally, revealing a stone stairway spiraling downward into the earth. No handrails, no torches, just jagged steps vanishing into black. Carved into the stone above was a phrase in blood-red letters: "Pay your toll or feed the bridge." Nobody moved. Then Lena, still shaken but fierce, said, "We've come this far. If that's where the truth is, then we go." They descended. The descent. The stairs narrowed the deeper they went. Every step echoed as though they walked through a massive, hollow skull. The deeper they moved, the louder the whispers became. Not around them, inside their minds. I never loved you. You let her die. You're the reason he's gone. You deserve this. Each phrase struck like a lash. Dex stumbled as he saw flashes, hallucinations. His mother's lifeless face, the blood in her mouth, her eyes accusing. Elisa collapsed to her knees, screaming. Her face turned white as bone. I saw my daughter, she sobbed. She was burning. She was calling for me. God, I left her. She's not real, Lena said firmly, shaking her. They're not real. They're real enough to hurt you, Mary warned, clutching her rosary. And then the stairs ended. They stepped into a massive underground hall, lit by a flickering red glow from beneath a translucent floor. Beneath the surface were faces, thousands, pressed up against the glass, screaming without sound. Rahul looked down. Those are people. Elisa covered her mouth, gagging. Are they alive? One of the faces turned, looked directly at her, mouthing her name. Sister Mary whispered, We are in the mouth of the toll. At the far end of the hall stood a raised platform, and upon it, a gate made of bones, stacked and fused, inlaid with golden veins and etched with eyes that blinked. Before it, a creature stood. It was draped in a priest's tattered robes, its face masked by a skull, with a jaw that unhinged as it spoke. Step forward, it hissed, and face the weight of your sins. Nobody moved. The creature gestured, and the floor beneath Elisa glowed. She screamed. Her chest burst into flames, but not with fire. Memories. She collapsed to her knees, reliving something none of them could see. Her body convulsing, eyes rolled back, mouth foaming. Dex rushed toward her, but was thrown back by an unseen force. The creature looked at the group. You must each offer a memory, one of pain, one of shame, one you swore never to face again. The bridge demands a toll of truth. Lena stepped forward, shaking but steady. I'll do it. The creature nodded. Speak. She hesitated. Then her voice cracked. When I was 12, I watched my brother drown. I could have saved him. I didn't move. I froze. I ran to get help, but it was too late. Marco died because of me. The creature extended its hand, and from Lena's chest, a ribbon of red. Light was pulled. It curled into the air and vanished into the gate. Lena staggered back, pale and dizzy, but alive. The creature turned to Rahul. He backed away. I can't. If you refuse, it said, you become part of the bridge. He trembled, then fell to his knees. I hacked into a medical company's system, leaked records for money. It exposed a list of terminal patients. They lost their insurance. Some of them died. The ribbon of pain was pulled from him, and he screamed, convulsing. Blood leaked from his ears. When it stopped, he collapsed into Mary's arms, sobbing. Elisa stood next. Her face was ashen. Her hands shook violently. I left my daughter in a bathtub, just for a second. I thought she was playing. I thought I could run downstairs and answer the door. I thought she'd be fine. Tears poured down her face. She wasn't. The pain was taken. She didn't scream, but she didn't stop crying either. Sister Mary was last. Her jaw clenched. I told a boy he was cursed. I told his parents he was marked by the devil. They believed me. They left him in the woods. He was 8. They found him days later, barely alive. No one spoke. The creature bowed its head. You have paid your toll. The bone gate cracked, split open, and what lay beyond was not a path, not a road, not salvation. It was the other side. The space beyond shimmered like molten shadow, a world upside down, trees growing from skies, moons with screaming faces, rivers made of blood that flowed up. A low, bone-deep voice echoed from within. You came seeking truth. Truth does not leave you whole. Dex stared at the portal. So what now? We cross? The creature stepped aside. There is no turning back. Cross the threshold, or remain as echoes. And then the floor began to crack. Stone split. Screams erupted from beneath. Faces clawed at the glass, begging. Decide, the creature whispered. The bridge cannot hold. The floor shattered. Glass exploded upward in a storm of shrieking souls, and the group had no choice. They ran, diving through the bone gate into the churning nightmare beyond. As the last of their feet crossed, the gate slammed shut behind them with a sound like screaming steel, sealing the toll chamber into eternal silence. They tumbled through a void as if falling through smoke and wind. Gravity bent sideways. Time flickered like a dying light bulb. And then, impact. They hit solid ground, though it felt wrong. The texture was like skin stretched too tight over something alive. The sky above pulsed a deep, sickly red, swirling with veins of black lightning. The horizon wasn't straight. It bent upward, like they stood inside the shell of a giant bowl. Trees grew downward from the sky, swaying in slow, deliberate motions. Some of them twitched when looked at. "Where the hell are we?" Rahul whispered, standing slowly. "This isn't Earth." "No," Sister Mary murmured, eyes wide. "This is the reflection, the world that exists underneath all others, the truth beneath the lie." Elisa clutched her arms. "It's like the world's been inverted, twisted." "And this is just the beginning," Lena said, pointing ahead. A structure loomed in the distance, gigantic, shifting, a cathedral, but not like any church from the mortal world. It floated above the cracked earth, its foundations made of grasping hands, each frozen in eternal agony. The spires twisted into black thorns, and stained glass windows glowed with moving scenes, their memories replaying in violent loops. "We have to go there," Dex said grimly. "That's where the answers are." They set out, the journey to the cathedral. The terrain fought them. With every step, the ground breathed, exhaling hot wind that carried voices only some of them could hear. Dex heard the sound of his mother humming lullabies. Lena heard Marco calling out in terror. Rahul saw the reflection of a younger version of himself walking beside him, whispering things he refused to acknowledge. After what felt like hours, they reached a valley of mirrors. Thousands of mirrors stood tall like monoliths. Some cracked, others covered in handprints, all of them humming with energy. "We go around," Dex said. Too late. The mirrors responded to their presence. Each one came alive. Lena's mirror showed her walking through a hospital hallway. Doors swung open to reveal versions of her brother Marco, burned, drowned, skeletal, always dead, always blaming. Elisa's mirror showed her standing at her daughter's grave, surrounded by versions of herself dressed for different funerals. In one, she laughed. In another, she danced. In another, she tore her own eyes out. Sister Mary's mirror flickered violently, trying to form a reflection, but there was nothing, just a hollow silhouette. A whisper escaped the glass. There was never a soul, only duty. Rahul refused to look, but his mirror turned on anyway. It showed him sitting in front of screens, his face bowed. The Cathedral of the Forgotten. They arrived at the base of the floating cathedral just as the sky began to bleed. Crimson rain fell in slow, sticky drops, each one sizzling on the skin. The front gates stood open, held by chains made of spinal columns and screaming mouths. A stairway of teeth led upward. Dex turned to the others. "Whatever's in there, we end it. We get our answers. We find the exit, if there even is one." Nobody responded. Words felt like betrayal here. They climbed. Inside, the cathedral pulsed with red light and organ music that sounded like bones grinding together. The stained glass windows showed them, even in places they had never been. Dreams, fears, past lives. And along the walls were statues of themselves, each one missing a different part. Dex without a heart. Lena without a head. Mary without hands. Elisa without eyes. Rahul split open down the middle, hollow. "What is this place?" Elisa breathed. "A reflection," Sister Mary said, "of what we've buried, of who we are without the lies." They moved forward. The cathedral halls twisted, rooms leading into themselves, staircases going nowhere. In one corridor, they passed a choir of children, stitched mouth to mouth, humming a dirge that made blood leak from their noses. The children followed them with blank, pupilless eyes, watching, waiting. At the altar of the cathedral sat a man, or at least something in a man's shape. He wore black robes that moved like smoke. His face was featureless, save for a mouth that stretched from ear to ear, filled with rotted, glinting teeth. He turned to greet them. "Welcome to the seat of reflection," he said. "You have crossed the devil's bridge. You have paid your toll. Now comes your truth." Dex stepped forward. "We didn't come for some sick game. We want answers. We want out." The figure chuckled and the room shuddered. "Out? You've always been in. The bridge simply lets you see it." He raised a hand. The walls vanished. They stood now on a platform suspended over an ocean of screaming mirrors, each one showing a different version of reality. In some they were dead, in others monsters. In one they were still climbing the bridge. "You have not crossed over," the man said. "You are still crossing. This is the midpoint, the eye of the bridge. Beyond lies your end, or your beginning." "And you?" Lena asked. "I am the keeper," he said, "the one who waits between steps. I do not judge, I reveal." He opened his arms wide. The mirrors below them began to rise, one for each of them, each glowing, each pulsing with a terrible invitation. "Step into your truth," the keeper said, "and see if you survive it." The mirrors rose like silent witnesses, their surfaces shimmering with a dull, wet sheen. The group stood frozen, bathed in their glow, hearts pounding like drums in the void. Each mirror reflected not their current selves, but something twisted, something they had buried deep. Wounds, lies, darkness. The keeper's voice echoed, deep and cold. "Choose your mirror. Step inside. Only then will the path ahead be revealed." "No," Elisa whispered, backing away. "This is insane. This is madness." "Isn't that what truth always feels like?" the keeper replied, smiling with teeth too long to fit his mouth. Dex stepped forward. His mirror trembled. It showed his childhood bedroom, dark and oppressive. A young Dex crouched in the corner, hands clamped over his ears. In the background, shouting, his mother's voice raw and broken. Then a crash. Silence. His reflection turned and looked at him, blood dripping from its nose, eyes hollow. "I never helped her," Dex muttered. "She died, and I just hid." He reached out. The surface of the mirror rippled like water. He stepped through. Dex's mirror darkness swallowed him. He blinked and was suddenly in the room from the mirror. Everything felt real. The musty scent of old blankets, the creak of the ceiling fan, the cold beneath his bare feet. His younger self sat in the corner, knees drawn to his chest. "Hey," Dex said, "you don't have to do this alone." The boy didn't respond. Suddenly the door burst open. His mother stumbled in, bleeding, sobbing, one eye swollen shut. Behind her, the shadow of a man loomed. Dex recognized the figure, his mother's boyfriend, a monster in human skin. The shadow turned toward him. "You let her die," it growled, voice like grinding stone. "You let it happen." Dex ran toward the shadow, but the floor melted. He sank into blackness, thrashing as hands pulled at him from beneath the carpet. Eyes opened in the walls. Laughter filled the air, his own, twisted and cruel. "No more hiding," Dex shouted, climbing out with burning effort. "Not anymore." He grabbed the boy, his younger self, and pulled him upright. The shadow howled. The room exploded in a burst of red light. Dex screamed. Back at the cathedral, Dex was hurled from the mirror. He collapsed to the ground, soaked in sweat, chest heaving. His arms were covered in bite marks, small, childlike teeth. He looked up. The keeper nodded. "You faced it. You walked through." Lena stepped forward. Her mirror showed the river, the one Marco drowned in. It was night. Her reflection stood on the bank, dry, untouched. In the water, Marco flailed, screaming her name. She whispered, "I should have jumped in." She stepped forward. Lena's mirror cold, bitter, biting cold. She stood again by the river's edge. The moon above cast long shadows. Marco was in the water, just like before. She rushed toward the edge, but the water rose, reaching for her with fingers made of ice and memory. Her legs froze mid-step. Guilt wrapped around her throat. "You let me die," Marco's voice echoed. "You always let people die." Lena screamed and dove in. The water wasn't water. It was blood. It stung her eyes, filled her mouth, threatened to drown her. but she pushed forward, clawing toward Marco. She reached him, only for his face to rot away in her hands, skull grinning. "You're too late." "No," she whispered. "Not this time." She held on to him, refused to let go. The current dragged her under. Back in the cathedral, Lena emerged gasping, soaked, trembling. Her arms were scratched and bruised, but holding something. She opened her palm, a small, rusted toy boat, Marco's. She sobbed, clutching it to her chest. One by one, the others stepped into their mirrors. Elisa's mirror. She found herself in the bathroom. The water was running. Toys floated aimlessly. "Mommy?" Her daughter stood in the tub, not drowning, waiting. "I didn't mean to leave," Elisa choked. I just wanted 5 minutes." "I know," the girl said, "but I needed you." Elisa reached in, and suddenly the girl's face twisted, swollen, lifeless. "You failed me," it hissed. Elisa didn't move. "I know." She kissed the girl's forehead anyway. The water turned black. She returned, lips blue, fingers pruned and shaking. Her reflection had not followed her out. She collapsed beside Lena, silent tears running down her face. Rahul's mirror. He sat once again before the computer, his emails open, the data leak ready to go. The voice behind him whispered, "They offered money. You took it." A parade of corpses walked through the screen, families, doctors, patients, each mouthing curses. Rahul whispered, "I thought it was justice." "You wanted vengeance." He turned, the room filled with charred bodies, skin peeled, eyes melted. One touched his cheek. "You killed me." Rahul didn't argue. He walked into the fire. He stumbled back through the mirror, body smoking, face burned. He didn't scream. He just nodded. Sister Mary's mirror. The woods. A small boy cried, alone. "I'm not cursed," he sobbed. "Why did you say I was?" Mary knelt before him. "Because I didn't understand you. I saw something different, and I was afraid." "You made them leave me," he said. "They thought I was the devil." Mary's eyes welled. "I thought I was doing God's work, but I was wrong." The forest grew teeth, branches twisted around her. "I deserve it," she whispered, and embraced the boy. She emerged, eyes bleeding but calm. The keeper raised his arms. "You have faced your truths. The path opens." The cathedral began to crack. Walls split. The floor gave way to stars. The mirrors shattered, shards flying into the darkness. A new gate formed ahead, this one made of ash and whispers. It pulsed with heat. A new voice spoke from it, not the keeper's. Something older, hungrier. "You have bled your truths. Now bleed your souls." The bridge wasn't over. It was just beginning again. The ashen gate stood before them, tall as a cathedral spire, weeping gray smoke that smelled like burnt memories. Whispers bled from its cracks. Hundreds of voices overlapping, chanting in tongues lost to time. Each syllable they muttered gnawed at the mind, pulling at sanity like a loose thread unraveling from within. The group stood still, caught in its gravity. The keeper, now fading like steam in cold air, gave one final nod. "What waits beyond is not for me to witness, only for you to survive, if you can." And then he was gone. No flash, no scream, just absence. The world trembled. "Are we even still on the bridge?" Lena asked, her voice brittle. "I don't think we ever left it," Dex muttered. "I think the bridge is the journey. No more mirrors, no more illusions," Rahul said, his voice hollow. "Let's finish this." They stepped through the ashen gate. Beyond the gate, the shift was immediate. The sky above turned colorless. No sun, no stars, just endless canvas smeared in hues of rot. The ground below was bone, not dirt, not ash. Bone, miles and miles of it, cracked and whispering, and stretching before them was the final part of the bridge, or what remained of it. It was fractured. Chunks floated in the air, connected by strands of flesh and sinew. Arcs of lightning shot between platforms. Down below was nothing but an abyss, breathing. A final trial stood between them and the end. Each platform bore a sentinel. Not demons, not creatures, but versions of themselves, twisted, rotten, pure evil. Their reflections from the mirrors, now made flesh. The first platform trembled. Dex's shadow self stood waiting, wrapped in chains, holding a bloodied baseball bat. His eyes glowed red, and from his lips dripped black ichor. "So we're fighting ourselves?" he asked, stepping forward. "No," the shadow growled. "You're fighting what you were always meant to become." It lunged. Dex versus Dex the bat swung with bone-cracking force. Dex dodged, barely, the weapon slicing air an inch from his throat. He grabbed a loose shard of bone from the ground and deflected the next strike. But his reflection moved like a storm, relentless and cruel. "You're nothing without guilt," the doppelganger snarled. "You need her death. You define yourself by failure." "I define myself by surviving it," Dex shouted, ramming the shard into the shadow's chest. Black smoke erupted, shrieking as the creature disintegrated into ash. The platform behind him began to solidify. The others understood. Each step forward required a kill. Lena versus Lena. On the next platform, Lena stood face to face with herself, drenched in river water, eyes like shattered glass. Her mirror self carried Marco's corpse like a puppet, jerking its limbs, mocking her failure. "You only loved him when it was too late." Lena screamed and charged, tackling the shadow into the bone. It fought back with claws made of regret, slicing her cheek, whispering of drownings that never stopped. She gritted her teeth. "I loved him always." She strangled the reflection, her hands coated in blood that wasn't hers. It gasped and shattered like glass under pressure. Elisa versus Elisa. Her mirror self waited with her daughter in her arms, the child's face melting, reforming, melting again. "You chose yourself," the shadow hissed. "Admit it. You chose to leave. You danced, you smiled, you forgot." "No," Elisa whispered, falling to her knees. "I never stopped mourning." The shadow knelt too, mirroring her. "Then die mourning." The creature pulled a knife of bone and lunged, but Elisa met the strike head-on, grabbing the blade and twisting it. Blood ran down her arm, but she didn't let go. The shadow shrieked and dissolved into dust. Elisa rose, breath ragged. Rahul versus Rahul. His other self stood behind a wall of fire. No weapons, no emotion, just a screen flashing all the names he had destroyed. Thousands. "You think your guilt makes you worthy of redemption," the reflection said. Rahul didn't answer. He stepped through the flames. "Let them burn." "You're right," he whispered. "I don't deserve it." Then he grabbed the screen and smashed it against the reflection's face until it stopped moving. Sister Mary versus Sister Mary. Her mirror self had no eyes, no mouth, no hands, just a voice, a memory of sermons and brimstone. "You never had faith," it hissed. "You only had control." "I thought I was protecting them," she said. "You were afraid of them." The shadow rushed her, screaming verses of damnation. She stood firm, pulled the crucifix from around her neck, and drove it into the shadow's skull. The scream that followed was eternal, but the shadow vanished. The final platform awaited. The bridge was nearly complete, but ahead stood the last guardian. Not a shadow, not a reflection. Something else. It rose from the bone, tall, skeletal, its spine exposed. Its face was made of all their faces, shifting every second. Their voices echoed from its mouths. "I am the bridge," it said, "the price of passage." The group stepped forward. No weapons, no more mirrors, just raw, broken selves. "What now?" Lena asked. "You have faced your truths," the creature said, "but you have not faced each other's." The ground trembled, chains erupted from the bone, binding their ankles. The sky split open, and from it descended versions of each other, twisted to hate. Dex faced Lena's guilt. Elisa faced Rahul's destruction. Mary faced Dex's cowardice. Rahul faced Mary's coldness. Lena faced Elisa's sorrow. The final trial wasn't survival. It was forgiveness. Blood sprayed. Screams rose. They were forced to fight each other's worst moments, without understanding, without mercy. Until finally, one by one, they dropped their weapons and embraced, not to condone, but to understand. The creature reeled, cracking like porcelain. The bridge completed. In the distance, a final gate formed. Golden, still, waiting. Behind it, something moved. Something ancient. Something that would finally answer the question, is this a bridge or a trap? The golden gate shimmered, suspended between stars and silence, wrapped in a breathless stillness that bent time itself. It stood not in triumph, but in judgment. It pulsed as if alive, as if it had been waiting for centuries for them to arrive. The five survivors, Dex, Lena, Elisa, Rahul, and Sister Mary, stood before it, bloodied, bruised, forever changed. No more illusions, no more shadows, just raw, stripped souls staring into the unknown. I thought it would feel different, Dex murmured. Familiar. Like this is where answers come. Elisa touched the gate. It was warm, almost like skin. It's not the end, she said. It's a beginning. The gate opened with a hiss, not mechanical but organic, like a mouth slowly parting its lips. From beyond came a low hum, not music, not wind, but intention. Beyond the gate, they stepped through, and the world around them inverted. No sky, no ground, no gravity, just infinite dark, pierced by swirling rivers of light. Shapes passed between them, not quite people, not quite beasts, twisting, weeping, laughing. Time flickered. They weren't walking. They were remembering forward. The Devil's Bridge wasn't a bridge between places. It was a bridge between selves, between who you were and who you might become. And now the final test lay ahead. Not a trial of fear, not a battle of will, but a choice. They were each separated, dragged into individual realms shaped by their deepest ache. Not illusions, but full-fledged realities molded by the echoes of the bridge. Dex's realm. He stood in a quiet neighborhood. Evening sun. Children laughed. He walked up to a house, his childhood home, whole and alive. The door creaked open, and his mother stood there smiling. You came back, she said. You never left me. He wept, fell into her arms. This wasn't a vision. This was a version of reality, one where he made the right choice. But in the corner, the bridge shimmered, faintly, and it whispered, stay and you forget. Step forward and you carry it. Lena's realm, the river never existed. Marco stood beside her, alive and vibrant. They watched the stars together. You were never too late, he said. I waited. She laughed, truly laughed, for the first time in years. But in the shadows, something called. The bridge pulsed, flickering in the starlight. Stay in bliss or walk in truth. She shook and whispered, goodbye, Marco. The world fell away. Elisa's realm, a park, her daughter on a swing, laughing, waving. You came back, she cheered. Elisa ran, held her tight. Warmth, innocence, peace. She could have stayed. But the girl looked up, eyes turning hollow. You're not supposed to be here, Mommy. The bridge loomed over the horizon. Elisa cried, I'm so sorry, and left. Rahul's realm. He sat in an office, successful, respected, surrounded by ethical acclaim. Headlines praised him, but the whispers never stopped. The screams of the people affected by his past echoed through the glass. He opened the window and saw the bridge stretching through the skyline. I'll never be free of it, he muttered, and jumped. Sister Mary's realm, a chapel filled with light. Children sang, acceptance, grace, true peace. But every face turned to her and asked, do you believe now? And she didn't know the answer. The bridge stood behind the altar. She touched her cross and walked. They emerged once more, together, shaking, scarred but free. Before them now stood the final being, not the keeper, not the beast of bone, but a woman tall and veiled in shadows. Her eyes were made of galaxies. Her hands were bridges, countless of them, entwined with souls past and present. You've crossed it, she said, but you still asked the wrong question. Lena stepped forward. Is this the other side? The woman shook her head. There is no other side, only what you carry with you. The bridge behind them began to collapse. Each step they had taken, folding in on itself, erased. What was this place? Rahul asked. A test? A punishment? She looked at them gently. Number A mirror. Each of them were offered something. Dex was offered forgiveness, not from others, but from himself. Lena was offered the ability to let go. Elisa was offered the chance to truly live, instead of endlessly mourning. Rahul was given the burden of atonement, but with the tools to change. Sister Mary was given faith, not in God, but in people. They looked at each other, realizing it was never about survival. It was about transformation. And the bridge had led them here to decide, will you return to your world, forever altered, knowing what you've seen? Or will you stay here, lost in what could have been? They all turned to the woman, and together they said, we choose to live. She smiled. The world around them folded in like a flower closing at dusk. There was a flash, not of light, but of memory, back in the real world. Dex woke in a hospital bed, Lena on a street bench, Elisa in her daughter's room alone, Rahul in front of his computer, staring at an unsent email, Sister Mary at the altar, trembling. The bridge was gone, but each of them remembered, not vividly, but enough to change, enough to begin again. Somewhere, in a forgotten forest, Devil's Bridge crumbled into dust. Only a whisper remained, and the question, was it ever real, or just the truth clawing its way through a lie? The end. If this story kept you hooked, gave you chills, or made you think twice about crossing an old bridge, let us know in the comments. Would you cross the Devil's Bridge if you had the chance? Like, share, and subscribe for more spine-chilling tales and haunting journeys. And remember, the other side may not be where you think it is,